All right, so for the last half now, we're gonna do an eye drawing and take some notes as we do so. I'm gonna use my webcam as I have been in the past to do this drawing. And I'm just gonna use a blank sketchbook page right here. Make sure you guys can see that. Again, you have to speak up if you have questions so I can answer those. I'm gonna be using an HB. If you have your pencil kit around, get your pencil ready to rock and roll. This is pretty sharp, but for me, I want it perfect, at least before I start. I'm gonna sharpen that up. Using a sharpener, so you can see how sharp that is. I need that to start with, okay? Let's see. If you leave the meeting at this point, you're gonna be marked absent, so be careful not to do that. This is my reference eye, like I showed you from the slides. So Mr. Anderson is gonna draw off of this. I'm just gonna leave that right above my sketch as I go, okay? But you may not see this the whole time because I'm gonna be focusing down on my sketch, just so you have some idea. If you really wanted to geek out, you could almost find this slide right now on your screen and split screen me and this eye if you wanted to follow along. But you're gonna basically just be drawing what I'm drawing right now, okay? So that's gonna be Mr. Anderson's reference. I have this guy handy, my kneaded eraser. This is gonna be great. And the blending tool that I gave you guys, this is gonna be great as well. So I'm gonna have that handy. Might use the rubber eraser too. Remember I cut this last time to get a really sharp edge. So that's really my setup. It's not, you don't need a whole lot to draw this. So, how to draw an eye. Here we go. In the classroom, I usually do this. I usually do this on my whiteboard. So that's kind of how I'm going to do this for now. Is just to kind of pretend this sketchbook page is my whiteboard, which is going to work just fine. So, all right, the first thing I want to do, and if you want to record steps, is I'm just going to sort of lay out size. Lay out the eye size. Take a note somewhere on the side of your sketchbook. This is the most important thing you can do. Remember on your homework that when you turn in your final draft, you're going to want to make sure that it's life size or larger. So literally, if you look at my page here, if I just put some reference dots like that big, that's pretty big when you think about it. Like in terms of like the size of a sharpener, that's a pretty big eye. If it was any smaller, this would be really tough. So these dots just kind of indicate maybe the corner of the eye right here, okay? So start by laying out the size of the eye, just by making these landmarks, okay? I might even put up here, like, use small dots. Just using those, that just helps me know, okay, for sure this eye is gonna be about that big, okay? All right. So the second thing I'm gonna do is sketch the shape of the eye. And I wanna do this lightly. I'm gonna put an exclamation point. This is what students and myself usually screw up on, and I end up drawing it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times, and then erase kind of until I get the point where I like what I see. So watch Mr. Anderson just for a second, and then you guys can give this a try. The eye shape for this gal anyway is what I mean is this right here, kind of this shape right in here. I'm not worried about the eyelid. I'm not worried about anything inside. Don't let that distract you. I just want this shape. It's kind of like a football. It's kind of like an almond, okay? And then right here, it gets a little strange. Every human eye kind of has that tear duct. And then, so when I draw this, I want to be careful to capture that. So watch Mr. Anderson here. I'm just going to sketch kind of back and forth lightly here. That looks a little tall. There we go. And then this bottom side, pointing over here, and the bottom is not quite like the top. It actually scoops in. Kind of like that, okay? At least that's what I have. So again, if you are bugged because you can't quite see my reference image, take your computer right now, make zoom on one half of your screen, find this image in the Google slide, and make that the other side. That is an option. Okay.
We don't have access to it.
We don't have access. Yeah, I'll free that up right now. And then you guys will be able to, let's see, change the schedule for that. Thanks, Anna, for reminding me of that.
Are we supposed to be like trying to draw it with you?
Me? Yeah, you just follow along with my drawing. Okay. Let's see. All right, it'll come live here at 11:35 if you want to do that. I'm going to get back to my sketch here. Okay. Otherwise, just follow me. I think you'll be just fine today if you're just following along. It'll turn out just fine. So eye shape, you can see that I drew multiple lines and drew it lightly, so I can actually come back in here and erase some of these extras. And you can use your kneaded eraser just to lighten that up if you drew it too dark. So you see how I lighten that up? So the next thing I'm going to do is come in here and I'm going to draw the iris, okay? And the iris is made out of muscle tissue. It's a strange thing. It's basically muscles that you have a clear lens covering. It's not too many places on your body where you can see exposed muscle fibers, okay? And I don't know if you've ever looked that close to an eye, but it's kind of creepy looking when you think about it. It's a muscle in terms of it will contract and make this pupil smaller, letting less light in, like a camera aperture, or it will relax and allow more light in dark situations. It's an amazing invention. Our God is creative for sure, okay? And it's cool. This is the most beautiful part of an eye. Even in black and white, you can see how dramatic that is, okay? Let alone in color. So when I said the iris right here, I need you to note something. This is a perfect circle. I know, you're like, ooh, I don't like anything perfect. That's too high of a call, but I don't know what to tell you. You need to make sure it looks right. Another thing, I'm gonna go ahead and put some bullets here. Another thing is that it's almost always covered up by the top or bottom or both eyelids, okay? Always slightly covered by an eyelid. Okay, your notes should say that, all right? So the iris is what we're gonna be drawing next. A perfect circle, always slightly covered by the eyelid. And the size of this, I don't need to take a note unless you want to, but look at this with me. You see the distance from the corner of the eye to that? It's almost the same as this distance. Watch my hands one more time. Which means this pupil is dead center. I don't want you to worry about the pupil. Just think of this circle first. That thing's in the center of the shape. So where do I go with that? I'm going to make sure that I'm just going to put a little dot in the middle here. Just kind of a light dot. That's going to eventually get colored in, but that's going to help me know where this is. Now, if they're looking right or left, you'd move this a little bit. Okay. Now watch how I draw this. Pro tip coming up right now. I'm going to use my whole arm and I'm going to make some circles like this just to kind of practice this shape. And then I'm going to lay that pencil down and actually draw the circle right in here. And note the reference image real quick. This reference image has it covered up over the top. So I'm literally going to draw sort of out of the lines and come back and it's slightly covered right here. So I'm going to be drawing it kind of like this. Watch me. So I drew a bunch of those circles, okay? And then what I want to do is once I kind of like what I have, then I'm going to come through here and draw that a little darker, okay? Let me erase that middle dot. That might be screwing you up a little bit. But I know you can kind of see that I drew out of the lines up here on purpose. Remember, I'm kind of doing this, and this is probably one of the most critical steps. This has to be a perfect circle or people are going to look at it and go, that looks weird, okay? I also have paid attention to the spacing here. It looks a little big to me, which is fine. I'm going to go ahead then and draw it a little bit smaller and then just erase it down to the size I want. Remember, all these steps are really light. And use your whole arm. Don't use your wrist. If you're bending your wrist while you draw, you're really limiting your range of motion. Okay. That looks pretty good. I think I'm worthy of kind of moving forward. As I drew this, I realized I need to taper this eye shape just down a little bit, okay, according to my reference image. There we go. That's a good change. Kind of like that. All right, so let's kind of do a little side by side. Not bad. This space looks the same as that space. I think we should almost write that note. Watch the size and spacing. A lot of students draw an eye where they put the pupil in too small, almost always too small. I don't know why. That's a common flaw. So try not to draw it too small. All right, let's get back in here. That looks good for the iris, at least for now. We're gonna add the details later. So I'm gonna pop back over to my notes and we'll put number 4, and this is gonna be the pupil. Okay, the pupil is that black. It's basically a black hole, you guys. That's creepy when you think about it. That's a hole going right to the back of your eye. It's black because it's shadowed back in there, okay? When you go to the eye doctor, I know some of you have, they actually shine a light at an angle through this so it doesn't hit your nerves at the back, and they'll actually inspect the back of your eyeball. That's a crazy thought. So this is a hole, all right? So it's dead center. So my note right here is gonna be center it, draw light, because you're gonna add, that's bullet number 3, you're gonna add the reflection. One of my favorite things when it comes to drawing eyes is the reflection, okay? So there's my notes. Center it, draw it light, add the reflection, okay? So let's do them in that order. I'm gonna go back over here to the eye. I'm gonna find the center of the eye, and I'm gonna just kind of get this motion going and lay this down. Pro tip, err on making it a little bit large, okay? Larger than you think. Okay. That looks pretty good. It's funny when you draw this because all of a sudden it comes alive a little bit. Okay, now look at the size of that. You think that's right for this eye? It's pretty close. It actually looks a little small. So I'm just gonna outline this again. Lightly. Let's take a look at that. Does that look a little better? I think so. Okay. Now notice we haven't put in this next part right here, the reflection. Now pay close attention to this. I can't see you all. I should see some body language that shows me you're completely engaged right now. Let's take a look at the gallery view just for kicks. Make sure that this, when you do this, that you guys have a reflection that is accurate, okay? Casey, I need to see you. Come on now. Let's go back to speaker view here. So when I do this, you guys are gonna want to look closely at the photograph because everybody's reflection is different. And this gal is either sitting in front of a window or maybe it's like a studio light. You know, those big like rectangular box looking lights. Different lights will give different reflections. I know this sounds really weird, but sometimes if there's somebody else in the room or you're looking in a mirror, there's going to be like a silhouette of a person in there. Okay. So this is a pretty easy one. It's a rectangle. So I'm going to go back over here. Now look at my drawing. And I'm going to draw that rectangle. I'm looking at my photo. Make sure you guys have my full screen. This will show up a lot better. It's bent a little bit at the top, it looks like. And it's about that size. Okay. It's pretty big when you think about it. That's pretty wild. So I like it. I'm going to erase the rest of the pupil inside of that out. I love the kneaded eraser because I can change the shape of it a little bit and get into tight spaces. You can also use your hard eraser. If you've cut it with a knife or something, it'll do the same job. All right, so now I'm just going to finalize this. You guys, this is where it starts to get real. I'm going to shade this in, but I'm going to change pencils from my HB, and I'm going to grab probably the 4B and sharpen that up because I want a dark pupil. And I love this step because once you start to do this, it really comes alive. There we go. See, I've got the 8B or the 4B rocking. So take a second with your pencil. If you like the shape of the pupil, press hard. Don't damage the tooth of the paper, just hard enough to get it to do its job where it should look pretty dark. Like that. To blow off some of the dust it leaves. And then look, I'm gonna make this real crisp right here. The reason for that, at least on this sketch, is because look how crisp that reflection is. That's wild. Okay, it's real crisp lines here. I like that. That works pretty good. Now, for different drawings, it might have dots in it. So let's just kind of do some fake pupils over here. Sometimes this will have like a little life speck in the corner. That's just a circle. See that one I just drew? Let's try one here where it's maybe a series of dots. Maybe it's got a couple light sources in the room. Kind of like that. I've seen them like that. So you might want to take and draw some arrows down here like this. Samples. See those? It all depends on your photo. Any questions about this? Okay, real quick, what I'm going to do is screen share the assignment and show you guys some of those references again. Take a look at Mr. Anderson's computer here. Look at the reflection here, almost identical in that child's eye. Let's go to this lady. You can see her reflection. See this silhouette of a person in there? There's the one we're working on. You literally can almost see the light fixture in her eye. Rectangular. Whoa, you can see somebody in there. Hey, there's a little bonus one right here on this guy. That's cool. Outdoors, it's going to have a little bit more detail, most likely because of the natural light source you're using. So it's kind of fun to see those different pupils in there. I'm going to get back to my webcam and we'll continue with our drawing. All right. After this, step number 5, I'm going to go ahead and work on the iris details. Okay, and I like this word, the details. Okay, and I'm going to make a note. Remember, this is a muscle. And what I mean by that is you want to show the fibers. Okay. Another note before I do this, I'm at the bottom of my page. This is in a starburst pattern, meaning when I shade in here or when I show the details, look at my pencil, please. I'm going to move away from the pupil like a sun or a starburst. Okay. So I'm going to put that in quotes. Kind of a starburst pattern. It means it's going to move away like that. It's going to move away from the center. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my HB and do a little bit of this work. I actually am going to do a little split screen like this for you guys so you can see what I'm doing. And I'm going to start basically by at least laying down a little bit of graphite. So as you can see with Mr. Anderson's pencil here, I'm using my fingers and my wrist. I want small motions. That's why I'm not going to necessarily use my whole arm. And I'm just going to move back and forth. But it has to come away from the pupil. Otherwise, it's going to look really silly. If I just shaded it like this in here all over, it would look really, really bad. Okay. So I'm going to move back and forth away from the pupil. Back here. Like that. Okay. So what I have now is a little bit of graphite. It's kind of detailed because I used a sharp HB. I'm gonna go one more round here. Okay, not bad. Wow, it's starting to look cool. Okay, while I'm waiting for you guys, I'm gonna do a little shading in my reflection. Started looking at that thing and I realized there's a little bit of gray in here, right here. Okay, tricky part, I'm gonna use my blending tool. I hope you have it handy. Don't use your finger. Look how massive my finger is in here and try to blend that. It's gonna look really cheesy. I hope you have a blending tool of some kind. I gave you all one. Hey, and I'm just gonna move like this. I'm literally picking this up. Watch me. Each time. I'm not haphazardly trying to get this done, but I do want a little bit smooth feel. I'm also being careful because I don't want to lose the muscle fiber texture that I got with my pencil tip. You guys see what I'm doing here? So move away from the center. I'm trying to use the same spot on my blending tool too. It's gonna start getting dark right there. Okay. So if you wanna come back over to your notes, I know I'm running out of space. Maybe you took smaller notes than me. Then you're gonna blend a little. Sharpen up my HB. It's funny how fast that gets dull. Then I'm going to capture the dark spots. Actually, the light and the dark areas. And I'll show you how to do that right now. I love this step. What I mean by that, here, let's do a little split screen again, is that in the actual eye, look at this. The eyelid is hanging out over the iris. Look at my screen. It creates a drop shadow. I don't even have that yet. Also, in my opinion, the muscle fibers on her eye, they get condensed right here and they're darker around the edge. Okay, so let's translate that a little bit. This is gonna look really cool. I'm gonna take my pencil here and sort of shade this area by adding a little bit more graphite down and get that drop shadow in on the iris. See that happen? Okay. Add a little bit more. Grab my blending tool because it should look soft and not grainy. There we go. It's not quite as dark as I want, so let's pick up the 4B. Add a little bit more of that shadow in there. And I know some of you are a little light-handed. It means you're not quite confident, but you know what, folks? Look at this. This is black. If you are not pressing hard enough to get black, be brave. This should look black like the pupil. Look at it. It's just as black as the pupil. Yours should be too, okay? I like the look of that shadow. I'm also gonna come back in here, and this is a little tedious, but I'm gonna create a little bit more value along the edge of her iris. That looks really cool. It's like these things you never cared about before. Never looked that close. And the other thing too, is this is not super organized. You guys look at this. It's like random in here. Okay, and I'm saying that to myself because I noticed I was getting all like organized right here. I'm gonna let a couple of these little strands of muscle come forward. And All right, this is going to get wild. This is kind of our last step here on this iris. These details, see these things? These spots? I'm just going to slightly darken them in here like this. Careful. They're subtle. Okay. I'm going to add a little blending. You guys have learned that the blending tool actually darkens your values a little bit. We've been spending a lot of time on the iris and the pupil, I know, but it is worth it, okay? If you zoom back out of this, I mean, look what we just drew. That's incredible, okay? And sometimes you get all tight real close to things. You kind of need to sit back for a minute and go, oh my gosh, I'm rocking this thing. This looks good. Okay, I have no idea where you're at home with this sketch, but I am gonna move into the next step. Okay, so if you look at our steps, we laid it out, got the eye shape, the iris, the pupil, we came back into the iris. You guys stay with the iris until it looks good, but I am gonna move out and move beyond the iris now, okay? So I'm gonna call this good, at least for now. I'm happy. So what we're gonna do now is start to move out and we're gonna shade the eyeball. So step 6, look at my notes, I gotta start coming over here now. Step 6 is going to be to shade the eyeball itself, okay? A note is, remember, it's a sphere. It's not flat. And this is so key, all right? And I'm going to show you what I mean by that. It's definitely a sphere. So when I draw this thing, I want to think of it as a sphere where I'm going to shade this side light to dark and this side light to dark. See that little sketch I did of a sphere? All right. So let's look at the reference image together. Make sure you can see my notes. Some of you still taking those. So right here, we're going to do this. Oops. Look at this. Dark to light. Is there a shadow over here? Totally. And you guys look at this, would you? It's so smooth. I am actually going to shade without my pencil. I'm going to use this. I'm going to use the graphite that's chilling on my blending tool. Remember, I was saving that. So watch, Mr. Anderson, please. I'm going to shade as if I'm actually shading on a sphere surface. I'm kind of, look how I'm moving it back and forth, kind of rotating it, pressing lighter, lighter, and lighter. And you could argue, Anderson, that's not pure white. This right here is pure white. This is not. So that means I got to assign that some type of gray tone. Do one more layer of it. Okay. Ooh, that's looking good. Now let's go over to this side. Same thing. I'm actually going to draw the tear duct with my blending tool and give this a little bit of shading. This side looks a little lighter to me. So I'm going to be careful, barely pressing. Press a little harder right here. And you know what? I am going to grab my HB because I got some crisper shadows in here that I want to capture. See that? And you guys, again, look how dark it is over here. This looks almost as dark as the pupil or the eyelid shadow. So I'm going to come back with my pencil. Oh, make sure you can see this and shade this a little bit more up top. Blend that in. Not too bad. All right. from here, you're going to move outside of the eye, and that's going to be step number 6, or excuse me, 7. I'm going to create the eyelids. And these are subtle shadows and lines. And then since we're rounding down the class hour, I'm going to come over here and put number 8. And this is going to be to draw the eyelashes. On your homework, listen to this before you go. You don't necessarily have to shade this area right here. It's almost hard not to, though. So maybe show a little bit of that. I'm going to stick around and actually draw the eyelid, a little bit of this eyelid right here, and then these eyelashes. Okay. If you are choosing to leave class right now, which you can, listen to this. You're going to have to add the eyelid and lashes according to the recording. You'll have to watch the recording again and then turn it in. But essentially, if I took a picture of this right here, it'd be incomplete because I don't have eyelashes or eyelids. Looks kind of funny. Okay, but I'm going to continue my demo. I know class hour is over, or you just stick around and get it done with me. I'm going to finish that right now. Again, I'll post this recording. So if you have to leave, you can. You have any questions, let me know, but I'm going to go ahead and just finish this. Go back to my eyelid notes right here. And remember, this is subtle lines. Okay, so I'm going to come back over here to this right here. And I'm drawing these. Look at this, ladies. Subtle meaning I'm not going to take my pencil and make a really hard line. This is a pretty soft line. Just going to sketch where it goes. It almost mimics the shape of the eye. It kind of gets a little taller over here. And I'm just going to use my blending tool to show a little bit of that. Wow, that really comes alive when you do this. Okay. I'm also going to take my pencil, and I feel like this is kind of a crisp line. So I'm going to crispen that up just a little bit. It almost looks like it splits back here. There we go. Not bad. Get kind of a side by side here. And then I'm gonna also just use my pencil and put a little bit of gray tone in here because her skin is not that white. I'm sorry. There's some gray to it right here. It's light right there. So maybe just a little darker as it comes in next to the nose. Wow, that looks so cool. And this side over here is a little darkened. Okay. That's the upper eyelid. If you really want to geek out, you could darken. Look at her. It gets real dark up here. Your eye socket creates a shadow up here. See that this whole area up here is shaded. So I'm just going to lay down a little bit of graphite. Shade that by pressing pretty hard just for that upper eyelid. You don't have to draw too much of this or you're going to end up running into the eyebrows and the eye and the nose. And then you're like, good grief, where do I stop? You just have to kind of like your background on your sphere, just sort of fade out. There we go. Again, she has kind of a crisp line right here. So notice after I blend, I come back and add this shadow in there manually, like with a pencil. Oh man, that's cool. I'm like impressing myself today. All right. The next then is just this subtle eyelid down here. You guys, it is so light right here. It just goes, look at it, it's a value bar, light to dark. So all I'm gonna do is just use my blending tool. I'm just gonna come in here, it's gonna be really light. It's gonna go to dark over here. I know you can probably barely see that. Pressing pretty hard to get that graphite out of there. And she's just got a little bit of wrinkles. It's because it's such a close-up photo. Draw those in. I know you guys can barely see those, but I am not going to press any harder. She's going to look like an old lady. Okay. Appreciate you guys sticking around. There's just a couple last pieces. This is commonly a commonly missed spot. So I'm going to focus in on this right here. You actually can see an inner ledge. Watch what I'm going to do. I'm actually going to draw kind of the inner part of her eyelid. Isn't that kind of weird? You see that? But it really exists. In fact, I'm going to come back and look at this. It's light. Okay, so I'm going to take my eraser, that hard edge, and lighten that. Whoa, that is cool. Look what that did. Made it look 3D. Remember, you have to do all of this before those eyelashes. You do that after the eyelashes, you're going to have a mess. You're going to have all these detailed lines sitting on top of it. It's too late. All right, you guys, this is looking cool. So now I'm going to come back in here now and do the lashes. You guys have any questions on eyelids? Doing okay? I'm going to tell you what, we saved the best for last. Eyelashes just make it. It just pops when you do this, okay? I'm going to change pencils. Actually, no, I'm going to go back to the HB, but this has to be sharp. You know what? I can't believe I'm going to say this, but you could use this guy on this, right? You know why? Because it's so pointy, okay? And this says it's actually a number 2. So this is a 2B, okay? You guys, I can't believe I'm going to do it. I'm actually going to use my mechanical pencil. So for all those students that left already, they didn't get to hear me. Okay, here's how I'm going to draw those eyelashes. Or if you come down here, a note is they kind of move away. They kind of brush away versus up and down. And I'll show you what I mean by that. Okay, if you just draw, what I mean by that is if you have an eye here and you just draw the eyelashes like this, look at this. Oh my goodness. You maybe did that as a kid. You guys see that sketch? Isn't that so goofy? They do not move up and down. That looks creepy, by the way. Okay, that looks like some zodiac sign or something super strange. But they brush away. So on my notes, they kind of go like this. They brush away. I don't know what to tell you, okay? A pro tip is that you want to lift as you go, meaning your pencil's hard. Look at this, and then you lift off. Kind of taper it. Actually, if I go back to using my sharpen HB, I might get a little bit more control over that. I'm not quite getting that taper. Let's just look at the difference really quick. And those of you sticking around, believe me, I'm almost done, so hang in there. Ooh, that is nice. I kind of roll my pencil and get that thin line. Ooh, that's nice. So I really sharpen this HB up. Okay, so let's try it. Her last, yeah.
So like once you're done with this, can you like kind of explain how you do the eyelid again? I don't really get how to do that.
This part up here?
Yeah, like it's like once you're done with like the eye and everything.
You got it. Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and enlarge my screen too, just because I can. And we'll finish this with the eyelashes. And I got a split screen thing going on here again, just for your guys' reference. So here we go. They start right here on her eye, and they actually kind of come down into the white area, and they're coming out of the edge of this line right here, okay? And you just have to kind of go for it. They're almost impulsive. But then she's got a few that sort of come out up top, right in the middle of her eye. They start to go all the way from here up into the eyelid. Right here, see how they go all the way up past the eyelid? So here we go. And look how far back they go, all the way back there. And we're going to talk about her makeup as well. So as you do this, if I just left it like that, it looks kind of cheesy. So what I'm going to do is darken in It's hard to show you all of this in the same time, but I'm going to darken all of this in. Look how dark it is right here. Lots of makeup. So I don't have that yet. So I'm actually going to kind of sketch that in as I go and really start to accentuate how much dark makeup there is right in the corners. Okay. I always, when I do this on the whiteboard, this is where students kind of have like an aha moment, like, oh my gosh, that looks really cool. And like I said, it's always those things you kind of creep up on at the end. Okay. See how that's just coming alive, my sketch? Build up that dark area where her makeup is. And I'm just coming back in here with even more eyelashes. There's quite a few, but I kind of build up the bottoms of them because of the makeup. That's the top. Boy, that looks cool. And then I'm going to come back over here to the bottom. Now look at the bottom. It's a lot more sparse. Okay. So when I do this, I'm just going to start here, put a few of them. And by the way, look, they grow out of the edge, not that inner thing we drew. So they're not going to come off of this line. They're going to come off of this line. And I'm just going to put a few of those. And right here, they kind of come down and over. Not too many. I'm not going to go too crazy. I might put a few more in. You can see some of the makeup on there. I guess a good word for these is, hey, make sure you show the makeup. Ladies, what is that? Is it eyeliner or mascara? What is it? Nobody's going to talk? So I think it's mascara, right? Okay, anyway. That stuff you need to draw. It's going to look more realistic. Some of those male examples in the folder, they also have dark eyelashes depending on kind of your hair color. All right, let's take a look at my final drawing here. Not bad for a sketch in about 25 minutes with, talking it through. I think if I had to, I could go back and add more detail to that. There's my notes. So that's what I would screen or take a photograph of and send in. Okay, how to draw an eye. Pretty cool.